Here we go.
This meeting is being recorded.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining us today. This is session number 63. Can you believe that for Neighboring 101? Been doing this for quite a while and always appreciate those that jump in and join us live. Um, Neighboring 101 is a class where we talk with leaders in the neighboring movement all across the United States, and we discover ways that organizations and individuals can use the art and skill of neighboring as part of community and personal development. Um, New in the fifth year here is that all members of Neighborhoods USA are now a, given a free participation link into this class. So some of you may be on here for the first time because of your Neighborhoods USA affiliation. And if so, we welcome you. Thank you for joining us and for accessing this class. You'll also be able to get a recap email after this class that'll give you links to all of the past Neighboring 101 sessions. One reminder, the class on March 13th is Pete Davis. He is the author of the book Dedicated, but he's also the director of the movie Join or Die. If you have, it's available now on Netflix. If you've had a chance to see that, uh, I would highly recommend his book Dedicated. It's really about people who have stick-to-itiveness. He calls them long haul heroes, people who stick with something for the long term. That may describe many of you actually in the volunteering and work that you do. So I would highly recommend his book if you have a chance to read it before he's our guest on March 13th. That would be great. I think we'll have a great discussion with Pete Davis. Today's session will last no more than an hour, and if people want to stay on afterwards and uh, chat and network and get connected, that's a big part of this as well. And you're welcome to stay on until the last person gives up and gets off. I think last time maybe we went 15 extra minutes, but we're glad to have those conversations taking place after the class. Well, today's session, we are hearing ideas and discussion from some of Missouri's most engaged neighbors, people who were recognized as part of Missouri Good Neighbor Week in the past. And we have at least four of the five panelists on with us. I want to introduce you to them real quick. Darla Noble. Darla is in Rogersville. She's a writer and a gatherer of neighbors. In 2023, she was recognized during Missouri Good Neighbor Week for leading her neighborhood association to host a neighborhood cookout and deliver cookies to 99 houses in her neighborhood. And they all with a sticker that said Happy National Good Neighbor Day. And so we really appreciate and celebrate those who celebrate National Good Neighbor Day well. I thought that was a great example back in 2023. So, Darla, thank you for joining us. We look forward to hearing some words of wisdom from you today.
Thanks.
Susan Peck. Susan is in Maplewood, Missouri. And in 2023, Susan and members of MapleGood, which is a group that she has organized, hosted a neighborhood event called Rock and Roll, featuring the MapleGood Dino dancers. I don't think she probably has any pictures with her, and she did not dress up in her Dino uniform today. But the event featured the MapleGood Dino dancers and a MapleGood You Rock, which was a community rock painting effort. And volunteers also made 200 bags of homemade cookies for afternoon events and distribution. But it was a great effort to gather together neighbors there in Maplewood, and we celebrated that effort in 2023 with one of the awards. Tracy Rice, I see Tracy is on with us from Kansas City. She was selected as one of Missouri's most engaged neighbors in 2024. Let me just read to you what her nominator wrote. She said, Tracy works hard to make this area a safer and healthier community. She's been holding community meetings, neighborhood cleanups, meetings on roads, and organizing a neighborhood association and a neighborhood trunk or treat in October for kids in the community. So Tracy has done just a little bit of everything to engage her neighborhood. And she is in Kansas City area. And then I see Michael Britton on. Michael represents the Delaware Neighborhood Association in Springfield, Missouri. He has helped to organize the annual kickball tournament between neighborhood associations. And he also helps lead Restore SGF, which has a goal to increase home ownership inside the city limits of Springfield. And this past year, he helped to adapt Ireland's Tidy Towns program, which is a litter program, to Springfield. Michael also had a recent social media post that kind of went viral and earned him the title of Springfield's best trash talker. And I'm sure we'll hear more about that from him. So, welcome to each of you. Is Travis Williams of Sedalia on yet? I haven't seen him on yet. He's the founder of a group called Sedalia Community Helping Hands. And it's a real passion effort. They've assisted 21 homeowners there in Sedalia. He receives no pay for the work, but they help homeowners that are struggling financially to meet needs, sort of a foster, and it's helping to foster a culture of caring there in Sedalia. He was also one of our Most Engaged Neighbor Award recipients. Well, welcome to each of you. I'm hoping we've done the introduction, but we want to hear from each of you, your own voices, and hopefully you'll start by kind of sharing some activities and what are some activities and actions that you think have helped make you an engaged neighbor? What's part of your story of neighboring? Who wants to
Okay,
jump in
well,
first?
I'll jump in.
Darla.
We have a unique neighborhood in the fact that it's fairly new. I'm a Phelps County girl, many generations, and we transplanted to this area to care for elderly family members. And this neighborhood that we moved into was just being built. And so a lot of us moved in right about the same time. Now, some have moved on since then, and that's been like 6 years ago. But I left home and what had always been my home and came. And so my venture into being good neighbors and starting that was almost rather selfish and wanting to know people and establish friendships and that sort of thing. But through all those efforts, we have yes, we have annual cookouts, but we are really engaged. There is a core group of us that are really engaged as far as watching over, you might say, people that have surgery. We had someone just sadly this week who lost their spouse.
Mm.
So where we make sure that people are covered for meals and transportation and just visits and cards, and we just engage with each other just to gather for coffee and book club. We have a little neighborhood book club. You know, just different things like that. And we try to do honor our kids with treats the first and last day of school. Just a Fourth of July event for the kids, and we have a neighborhood trunk or treat that we all set up in the driveways. And so it's really just about community and getting to know one another, so that so that we can be friends for to one another and help out, so we're not feeling alone. There's people that need rides or that need food or need a shoulder to cry on or something, or a ride to the doctor or something. Or um and so that's my point. That's my goal, and the goal of my little core group, that I'll call us, that we just want to be kind, and we want people to know that we're here to care.
I love that part of your story, and you were very vulnerable about this, saying you said selfish, that you're wanting to make connections, but I would say I was,
Oh, it was.
uh, I wouldn't necessarily say that was selfish. Someone has to take the lead, and you've certainly taken the lead, and I've called you a gatherer before, a connector, because you're
Right.
seem to be very good at making those connections for people and getting more people involved. And you're in a suburban sort of setting, and a great example of that, and really appreciate the effort you've invested. Have you seen um, increased level of trust, would you say, among participants in the neighborhood?
Most definitely. You're always going to have your naysayers. You're always going to have, and we do like little gifts for Good Neighbor Week. Last year we distributed little Easter baskets of candy to all the neighbors, or most of them. We had a few say, please don't leave anything, because I always post on our Facebook page, our neighborhood, our HOA Facebook page, hey, check your front door because there's going to be, something there for you or something. And we've had a few people that say, don't bother, we don't want anything or something like that. And so you're always going to have those that don't want to be involved. And, that's okay because that's, to me, it's their loss, but it's okay, to each his own. But yes, we have seen a great deal of just come togetherness, you might say, and trust, as you put it. They're not afraid to say, "Hey, can you water my plants while I'm gone for a few days?" Or, "Hey, do you mind to put my trash, thing away for me while, because we'll be gone, for a few days after trash day." Or, um, "Can you sit with my wife while I run, the dog to the vet because she's, an invalid," or something like that. I mean, so yeah, we've seen a lot of that. And it's good. It's very
Yes.
good.
Yes. Well, I appreciate the story and the example here. And I see online, I missed her when she checked in. I want to acknowledge that uh, Jennifer Profit is on, and the Hopeful Neighborhood Project out of St. Louis is a co-sponsor of Missouri Good Neighbor Week. And so each of these selections, as a most engaged neighbor, they do receive a check in the mail. And that sponsorship is possible because of the Hopeful Neighborhood Project and the money they have invested in Missouri Good Neighbor Week. So I want to be sure and acknowledge that and thank Jennifer for her efforts and for being a great partner in this project. Um, so we'll come back around, but I want to keep moving and bouncing to others. Susan, up in Maplewood, little different than Rogersville, Missouri. You're up
hmm
close to St. Louis, right? And
Yeah.
so what would you say? What were some of the events and activities that got you involved? And did you have a uh what was your motivation for doing it?
Well, so as David said, Maplewood is just right up against the city of St. Louis. So it's in St. Louis County, but it's kind of semi-urban. So I came from Dallas or North Dallas and more of a suburb area. So in Maplewood's probably 8,000 something. We don't have neighborhood associations. And so when I was first here, we moved here 19 years ago. I've loved people. I always have, enjoyed getting to know the neighbors. So, I knew a lot of people in my kind of couple streets around me and, just people I'd meet out walking and that kind of thing. But it wasn't until 2020, we all know that's the year of COVID. So in March, as hard of a season this was and difficult, it opened up a lot for me. And that, so my next door neighbor and I started thinking right away, this is going to be hard for everybody, but what about people that are elderly or immunocompromised, particularly? So we kind of did some brainstorming and came up with this group called MapleGood, which was kind of I love the name. Some friend came up with it. It's simple, but has stuck, and it's, so we would kind of added some programs like we would do drop off medicines or some groceries to elderly or those that just couldn't get out at all. We had food distribution. We worked with different groups to get food to people. We had a handy helper group that would work on outdoor projects for some of our seniors and people that with physical limitations. It just kind of kept growing. Oh, we had a mask making group that was so fun. Of course, we were all trying to figure out what kind of masks we could use, but we had homemade ones. We had certain types. We had teams taking them to hang up at the bus stops, and we had some mini pantries that we built. The two that were the coolest, that were part of my the Neighborhood Leadership Academy proposal, where if you've ever seen those big garage kind of shelving units, instead of doing your traditional blessing box, because this was pretty good size areas that really needed help. So we bought these, like with my grant, got these big pantries, and we had local just amateur artists paint them beautiful. If you ever want to go to MapleGood.org, you can see pictures. But those are still there, and because food insecurity, it hasn't stopped. And so anyway, the as COVID was not as became not as big of a problem, I think some people wondered if MapleGood was going to was just for COVID. But there were always, we all know there are always needs in the community. And so it's evolved. We have, we don't have a mask making group right now, or, certain things we don't have, but we continue. Our motto has been neighbors helping neighbors. And it's sort of this mutual aid where early on people were donating a lot of money, even without asking. I think people really were in that mindset of wanting to help whatever they could do. And so we could use that for, helping with people if, a certain bill that they needed paid. And now we really don't have much of an account, but sometimes we'll get donations, but we really encourage neighbors helping each other. So we do have a Facebook group. I know not everybody uses Facebook, but we do have a large number of people that are on there. And if there's a request, I will put it on there anonymously. There's a family, a single mom, they're really at the end of the month, they need some help, and maybe give a number, and people will Venmo a little bit here and there. And it's amazing how so many, I feel like neighbors have connected, and some at the beginning of COVID that felt really bad that they'd have to go use a pantry or, have to ask for money, are now doing the, other of helping people. And they're like, I'm back. I want to help. Our big program right now that I feel like is really getting a lot of traction is, we call it the family freezer. The church that I go to happens to be 2 doors from my house. And MapleGood doesn't really have a physical location. I mean, it's not even a nonprofit, just kind of a grassroots organization. But the church has been really gracious in partnering with MapleGood. And so there was this big deep freezer we hadn't been using. And now we have these community events, that have been so much fun. We had one on Monday night, maybe 5 or 6 neighbors. We kind of rotate because you can't have too many people in the kitchen, but we'll make meals for people in need, whatever. At first I thought it would be maybe somebody that's coming out of the hospital, or maybe a family with a new baby. But a lot of times it's a family that just needs to get through the month, before they can get paid, and they need a couple meals. And so they're mostly homemade stuff. And sometimes a person will double their batch of soup they're going to make, and then they'll drop off the other half. And so that I'm just really excited about, and just more neighbors really building connections. I love that when they're, a new group of 5 people come to the church and get to know each other. And how it is working together, you really bond and build connections. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I love that
Susan,
idea.
we do have one question in chat. Someone was asking, how do you
Oh,
learn
okay.
about and how can others encourage neighbors to share needs?
Well, we have besides the Facebook group, we have like just on our website. So we have sort of if you need help, you can click on, and we use like Airtable. I don't know, it's kind of like Google Sheets or I'm not sure, Google Form. And I'm not the person in charge of anything technical. So I do have a friend who does that. And so I'll get emails from people if they want to help or if they need help. And so they can say, oh, I'd like to help with the yard work, the handy helpers, or I'd like to help be on the cooking team. And the nice thing is it's usually like an email list that we put the person on, and they never really have to feel like obligated, but I'll send out, hey, we've got this person needs help with their yard. And then if somebody's available, they can sign up. So
well, and sometimes just even as you build that social capital and connections, it takes a little bit of trust for people to say, I need some help. But they might tell a friend or someone else who's already involved with you. And so it can grow that way.
You're right. I feel like, yeah.
I'm glad Susan mentioned her participation in Neighborhood Leadership Academy. She had a great project. And she also went to the Neighborhoods USA conference in El Paso, Texas, right? I mean, that's been 2 years ago now. So I remember you being there. Time flies, doesn't it? Well, from one side of the county or one side of the state to the other, Tracy Rice. Now Tracy's in the Kansas City area, and and sounds like you have been a real organizer of citizens in the area for things. What has been your um motivation, and what have been some of your activities and events that you've organized with your neighbors over the years?
I think most of my motivation has been my family. The little neighborhood that I live in is called Blue Summit, and we are actually located in between Kansas City and Independence, Missouri. We are an unincorporated area of Jackson County, and so we don't have a city government like Kansas City does, or Independence, Raytown, the big cities around us. We are dependent on Jackson County government. And so we don't have the things that the big cities have. The community, people in the neighborhood, they were like, Tracy, there's just so many things going on that we need help with. What can we do? What can we do? We need you. Can you do this? So I got tired of hearing the complaints and everything. So I decided, you know what? Somebody's got to step up and be the solution to the problem. So I decided, okay, we're going to have a big neighborhood meeting. And I organized our very first neighborhood meeting, and this was right before COVID hit. I reached out to our Jackson County Sheriff's Department, Jackson County legislators, invited all kinds of governmental people through Jackson County and everything to come and speak. And so we could discuss things, our infrastructure, things that were going on, our roads, animal control, sheriff, safety issues with the sheriff's department and things like that. And it just snowballed from there pretty much. I was told, I did this for like 2 years on my own, by myself, organizing, getting things going and everything. And I was told, you really need to organize an association. So I did that. And from there, we got one neighborhood cleanup a year, and that was in the spring. And now we are at 2. We get one in the spring and one in the fall now. So every May and every October, we get a neighborhood cleanup.
Tracy, that's a big success story, especially with a lot of communities stopping those because of cost. Yeah. So big success.
Jackson County did step up. They bring in dumpsters, and it's a weekend. It starts on Saturday and ends on Sunday. The community is able to take up anything, that they, other than like, we can't take like gasoline stuff and oil and that type of stuff. We're having a major issue with tires and stuff like that. But I'm working on a project with the discarded tires around. I'm hoping to get them painted and maybe do some flower beds around the neighborhood. We'll recycle those tires. We'll make them pretty. We'll make flower beds out of them or whatever. Set them around the neighborhood. Plant some flowers in them. Make them up for in the wintertime. Spray paint them different colors and make Christmas trees and snowmen and set them around the neighborhood for the kids to see when they're at the bus stops or coming through on the bus routes and stuff like that for school. I have an amazing neighborhood. I was born and raised here. I just turned 60 yesterday. So I've lived here 60 years. My parents were involved in neighborhood things, doing things like that. My dad was the fire chief of our neighborhood volunteer fire department for years. So I'm used to the being told, no, you can't. No, you can't. Well, I got tired of being told, no, I can't. I never thought I would be involved in government or political stuff, and here I am. So,
Well, sometimes those community meetings that you organize go off the rails and result in
yes, they do.
a lot of talk, but not a lot of action. But it sounds like yours actually resulted in some actions, but I would say it's probably because you continued to stay after it and continued to kind of push people to be involved. If I understand your story, you weren't satisfied with just one meeting where there was a bunch of talk. You kept after people to have some results. Is that a fair assessment?
Oh, very fair. My name has made it through Jackson County government now. I have been recognized in Jackson County at one of their legislator meetings for the work that I've done in Blue Summit. Yeah, I would say that's a very fair assessment. I am continuously sending emails and everything. Yeah.
Well, you've been a spark plug to resolve some needs. That next sort of step, and it sounds like you're doing that a little bit with the tires, is looking at those assets that your community does have, and how can you leverage those assets? So while some might see tires as a negative, you're seeing it as an asset that can be recycled and put into some sort of beautification work. There may be other assets in that neighborhood. That's kind of that next step, right? From addressing
Yes.
some of these immediate needs to incorporating and making use of these assets.
Yeah.
And love to see that
Right now,
happening.
right now, we are planning a comedy fundraiser to help raise money for the community because our community is so dark at night. We have no street lights. The little park that we have has like one swing, no slides, no nothing. It's got a small shelter house. And my kids, I call them my kids, the community kids, the kids in our neighborhood, they have no place where they can go, to play and to be safe. I want to get the kids out. They're stuck in the house on the video games all the time. It's like, what did we do growing up? We were outside all the time, so that's my goal, is to hopefully get some money raised and learn about grant writing, because I have no clue how to get grants or even where to begin or how to do that. So I'm here to learn along with everybody else also on how,
Well,
where do I go when I can't get the government to help us and everything? And when fundraising doesn't help, where's my next step?
yeah.
I did a cohort class through UMKC and through Centered Neighborhoods, which was amazing. And it was their first time dealing with unincorporated areas. It was my first time being there, so I learned some things through them, but I'm still learning.
Yeah.
And I am all about, what can I do? Where can I go? So,
Well, being a continual learner, that's part of it. And glad to hear you're rallying around those two things. Your park, even if it is under-resourced, is still an asset, and people
yes,
rally well around assets. So you're good to focus on that and grow that as an asset. And then safety. I mean, you mentioned street lights. When there is lighting, people feel safe. They're more likely to get out of their house and
yes.
make connections. So those are two great approaches. Sounds like you're on the right track there, Tracy. Glad to hear some of those projects. I think we'll probably have some questions for you. We'll come back to you here just in a little bit. I wanted to move on and catch Michael Britton, who down here in the other corner of the state, down in Springfield, Missouri. And of course, I mentioned that Michael's a trash talker, which I'm sure he can tell us more about that. But what have been some of the activities and actions that have made you an engaged neighbor, do you think, Michael? How are some ways that you've engaged and participated, and maybe what's been your motivation as well?
Yeah, thanks for having me, David. So going back to neat neighborhoods, you mentioned that briefly Some background on that, Erin D'Anastasio with the Hatch Foundation. She vacationed in Ireland. They had this program called Tidy Towns, where the towns in Ireland compete who has the cleanest town. And there was an award every single year, and some money came with that award. And she came back to Springfield saying, hey, how can we adopt this to benefit our neighborhood in Springfield? And I was lucky enough to be chosen to be on that committee of how we can implement this into Springfield. And we made a plan, and it went out to the neighborhoods. We did it by zone. There's 4 different zones in Springfield, and there was a first, second, and third place prize who had the neatest neighborhood or who did projects to better their neighborhood, beautification, trash pickup, things like that. And so before Neat Neighborhoods even started, I was doing what I called trash treks. So me and my wife and my dog would just walk around our neighborhood. I had a trash picker, and I would pick up trash as I would walk along. But now that this Neat Neighborhood competition kind of went into place, hey, we could win $6,000 first place for beautification for our neighborhood. So I really started to rally my neighbors and really showcase what I was doing and how much trash we had in our neighborhood. And it was really interesting to see who kind of latched onto that. A lot of older retired people, they got involved in picking up trash in their neighborhood. We had some kids in the neighborhood. There's one photo that was on our Facebook page. The mom was at Walmart, and they saw one of those trash pickers, and her daughter grabbed it and said, Mom, I need to pick up trash in our neighborhood. And so that's just, it just kind of snowballed from there. And going out on these walks, instead of knowing the neighbor as, oh, that's the neighbor with the nice windows, I started to actually meet them and become more face-to-face, just being present in our neighborhood. So this continued on through the summer, and in the winter, they announced the winners of the competition. And my neighborhood, Greater Park Rest, we won first place for our zone. So that was really awesome. So we have $6,000 to spend on beautification projects. That's going to be a challenge. We've already had a lot of ideas going on, so we're going to have to narrow it down. We've thought about doing some recycling, some electronic recycling. I know that's a big issue. Paper shredding, we thought about having a paper shredding event, just something to benefit everyone from the neighborhood. But also we've talked about, we have a certain part of our neighborhood that have some old columns from an HOA. We're probably going to sandblast those and repaint them to look nice, add some nice landscape around them. They're kind of a beacon point of our neighborhood, one of our entrances. So we thought we should spend some money on that. Yes, and then they offered me a position on the board since I have been involved in the clean committee is what they called it. So now I'm involved in the overall neighborhood association. So that's getting more involved with our neighbors, them knowing me, my face, that I'm the trash guy in the neighborhood. So that's been really rewarding, just to kind of see an older neighborhood kind of come alive and work together towards one goal of cleaning up trash.
See, that's what happens when you get involved. They find a board position for you
Yeah.
to get you further involved. And it's probably you show up to play kickball and you get drafted to help put on the whole kickball tournament and stuff too. Is that how that works?
So segue into that, this is the Bobby. It is the kickball trophy. So every year, SGF Kickball, we put on a neighborhood kickball tournament. So teams from each neighborhood, we have 24 designated neighborhoods in Springfield. So we're looking at having 16 teams this year. So this will be the biggest kickball tournament that we're going to have. And then we play kickball. It's a great little day. It's nice to meet other neighbors from other sides of the city that maybe you've never met before. Kids meeting other kids from other parts of the neighborhood that they would never meet. It's a lot of fun to see that happen.
And that you should clarify that trophy so people don't get the idea that is a special gold or bronze shoe on top. I think it's an actual shoe, right?
It is an actual shoe of one of the founder, Bobby Ream. She lives in Meadow Park neighborhood. That is actually one of her old running shoes.
So see, the trophy doesn't have to be fancy to be coveted. That's the lesson
Exactly,
here.
yeah.
Well, I've always got a gazillion questions that I can ask. That's never a problem, but I want to be sure and open it up to others that are online, either to take yourself off mute or to put it in chat. What questions do you have for our panelists here? Get started and jump in. They've all got experience and have a lot of examples of things going on. So who's first one with question?
I will ask a question of the rest of anyone in the group, panelists or listeners or whatever. Um, I have seen some things not in this area, but some friends of mine back in smaller rural areas that we're from and everything they're coming together to trade. I mean, the economy's a big deal. People are having trouble making ends meet, that sort of thing. So they've started this little unofficial network of trading, like, hey, I'll trade you some fresh homemade bread for for eggs, or I'll trade you some babysitting for tutoring or something like that. Has anybody done anything like that in their neighborhood or in their association? Because I would be all for that, but and there are some of us that would be, but if somebody is familiar with something like that, or has done anything like that, how has it worked?
Yeah, anybody have examples? Have you been involved? Well, those things all help build
Yeah,
social capital for sure,
They
Darla. So
do,
it's
yeah.
good for that. Jump on it. I heard somebody's going to
Darla.
speak.
Oh, yeah. Darla. You said your neighborhood has like do you do Facebook? It sounded like you said.
Yes, we do Facebook, but also I know that Facebook is not for everyone. And so
Yeah.
last year in 2020, well, actually 2023, and then continued on the last quarter, I started a quarterly newsletter for our HOA. And so it doesn't go out over Facebook, it is emailed. And then there are a few elderly people that don't even do email. So we snail mailed them the newsletter. So we do have an HOA newsletter. And so I have thought about putting it out there, but I can put it out there on the newsletter or on Facebook. But how to get people actually doing it, feeling comfortable with doing it,
Because there's a Maplewood, they call it barter and curb, which is kind of fun. Like, so people can, if sometimes they'll just say, I've got something free to give, and they'll, put it on their
We
curb
do
or
that, and I do
trade
that every
something.
spring with my flowers and stuff. And we do have people that they say, hey, we've got this curbside, but like just,
Yeah.
I don't know, sharing services, trading services and things, because like Dave said, I mean, it would build relationships and along with the whole economic aspect of it.
Anyone with experience with that?
Okay.
You're right. Not everybody's on Facebook. Sometimes Darla just takes someone to be the spark plug and be an example. So maybe by
Right.
some board members bartering or doing exchanges like that, it might encourage more of the same. Chet,
Right.
you had
Right.
something. Chet has a question.
Thanks, David, and thanks to all the panelists. I'd be curious to better understand what sort of platforms or tools you all are using to get organized and to communicate with your neighbors. Darla, you just mentioned a great example with your quarterly newsletter that you print out for some of your elderly neighbors. But are you using Google Docs? Are you using doodle polls? Are you doing Google surveys? Like, how are you rallying, organizing, coordinating, bring these neighbors together for these, mutual support projects and events?
Like in Blue Summit, when we have our meetings. Being we don't have a facility to hold our meetings in, we usually do our meetings in the spring into early fall. Usually October is the last meeting and event that we hold as a community. So when I have our meetings, we do Facebook. I pass out flyers. Our volunteer fire department has a digital board, which is at the entrance of our community, and they will post it on that for me. So when people come into the neighborhood, it's posted anytime we're having an event or a meeting. We have that. So usually it's the digital board, Facebook, passing out flyers, and word of mouth.
That's a good example, Tracy. You're using lots of different tools in the toolbox, not just relying on one to catch everybody.
There's also, David, neighbor.exchange that was featured last month, I believe, Jesse Check. The city of Excelsior Springs is looking at possibly partnering with them to provide a way for neighbors to communicate with each other. But they create a website for the neighborhood and a membership role where everybody's email is there and phone numbers, contact information. It seems like a really neat program.
Any other tools that anybody's using or methods?
We have a website that our neighborhood association has created, and it's not so much like a forum like Facebook would be, where people can talk to each other and ask questions, but at least it has something that has like a calendar on it to highlight events that are happening in our neighborhood or events around Springfield. And they've seen a lot of traction on that website for those people that don't use Facebook.
All right. Any other?
I have a question for Michael. How does the trash competition thing work? Is that for anybody in Missouri or throughout, or do you have to be in an organization to do that? How does that work?
It was designed for the neighborhoods of Springfield specifically. So each neighborhood association, the money would be awarded to them. So whoever did projects under their neighborhood association would count towards their neighborhood.
Okay, so where could I find information on that to where maybe I could get like Blue Summit involved and maybe some other neighborhoods around us?
I'll drop the link to the website through City of Springfield. I'll drop it in the chat if you want to check that out.
Oh, awesome. That would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, the city really jumped on board with that. And then Michael mentioned they got a foundation to help do some financial awards as well that really got everybody's attention, right? And helped the effort really grow and take off. Any other questions for our panelists before I wrap up with the final question? Lots of good links and ideas in chat if you access that.
I'll ask another one, I guess. Well, what have been your biggest challenges and struggles that you've experienced in your community organizing?
For us, it has just been the attitude of people who don't want to be involved. Rather than just not being involved, some of them tried to just really tried to dissuade things and tried to paint them in a bad light. Just silly little things, really. And and it could have been a real means of dissuasion. It could have been very hurtful to people trying to do good, but I'm thinking of one instance in particular when one was just very unkind to a gentleman because he voiced support for things on the Facebook page and thanked the board for caring about the neighborhood. And and they there was a couple of responses that were just really unkind. And so another lady in the neighborhood, she just said, if you don't want to, just don't, but don't ruin it for the rest of us. And so I guess just negativity that's voiced rather than just stepping aside has been our biggest obstacle. Or not, yeah, just our biggest hurdle, I guess.
Sometimes the naysayers can be won over, but it does take time, doesn't it? I can think in our
Sometimes, yeah,
think in our
yeah.
own neighborhood, one who was kind of negative and didn't participate, and then it took almost 2 years before he showed up at an event. And so it just takes time. Stick with it. I see a
Right.
question.
And
See a
yeah, go
question
ahead.
from Barb. Barb has her hand up.
Hi, I just had a question for Darla.
Yes.
Darla, how did you find your core group? And what did you,
Okay.
was it people that you already knew or did you just gather?
Well, I'm a big walker, and
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I walk the neighborhood, I walk miles a day. And so no, other than one young lady who lives directly across the street, the rest of the women that I invited, what I did was I just finally said, "Okay, I got to do this or else I'm going to come out of my tree." And so just in saying, "Hi, how are you?" when you would walk through the neighborhood, I kind of got a feel for who was open to saying hi back, that sort of thing. And so I just took the plunge and I sent 6 postcards, invitations saying, "Hey, I'd like you to come over to my house on this evening. I'm just going to have some dessert and iced tea, and I have some ideas for the neighborhood that I'd like to run by you to see if anybody else is interested." And I thought, okay, this is going to either be one gigantic face plant or not, okay? And of the 6 invitations I sent, one lady already had a previous engagement, and the others showed up. And you know, I we kind of introduced ourselves and and everything like that. And then I said, okay, I said, I'm just going to put this out here. And I started talking, I had made a list of some things that I'd like to see our neighborhood do. And I told them why. And after a few minutes, I paused and I thought, okay, nobody looks like they're trying to, mow everybody over to get to the door. So I'm going to go ahead and say, so what do you think? And I said, "So what do you think?" And they were so excited and so relieved and so grateful. And that is still the core group. We added a lady who has since moved because we added her because she really needed help with her husband who'd had a stroke, and then about a year later he did pass away. And so shortly, and she moved back closer to her daughter. And so but yeah, that's the core group, the ones that I just took that initial plunge. And it was a sink or swim kind of thing, but it worked out. So
That's very helpful. I'm a big walker too, so I'll keep that in mind. Thank you,
yeah,
Darla.
just you're welcome. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, uh, sometimes someone just has to be the one that steps out, right? And takes the risk and makes the ask. Sometimes I appreciate Michael Britton's comment in chat about struggling with volunteers, especially young
Yes.
volunteers, and
Yes.
getting people in his generation involved. It I, I don't know, Michael, do you have a solution for that? You're obviously involved. Is it just a matter of asking? A lot of the research will say you've got to ask, but you've got to ask people to do the things that fit with their gifts and talents and interest. So, if you ask me to be the club treasurer, I'm going to tell you no. That's not something I'm interested in. Be the club historian, I'd be all over that. So, is you think that's part of it, Michael, or what do you think some of the keys are for your generation?
I think a lot of times they're scared to do something they don't know. It's easier to just stay at home and not do anything than go out and do something that someone might ask them to do something, or they'll have to meet new people, or whatever the reasons are. It's new to them and they don't want to do something new. So I've seen as long as, the first time they go and they see how things are and it's not scary and it's not new anymore, hopefully they start to come back more and more after that. That's kind of how I was. I had moved into my neighborhood in 2021. There was a couple meetings. I didn't want to go to them. And then I was like, I'll go to one. And then, I haven't missed one since. So I think maybe that's a key to it, is just not making it scary for them.
I have a suggestion on that, and I was just typing a response. Do something for their kids. If you do something for their kids, they'll come and they'll help you. They're not gonna turn you down when their kids can benefit.
Right. I agree. I think one of the things that I have ran into is people, I get the same people all the time that will come and volunteer.
Mhm.
And then I have the ones that complain all the time that this is not getting done, this is not getting done. But then I'll say, but you don't come to the meetings. I need you to come to the meetings. Come to the meetings, voice your opinions at the meetings so we can get this out and help find a solution to the problem. It's just getting people involved. That and finance. Funding is a horrible issue. I don't know how people do it without funding. When you're from a poor community, that has a lot of homeless, like we do here in our little community. We only have about 500 people in my neighborhood. And that's all I have. And it's, like I said, I'm struggling. But
Well,
we're doing it.
amongst
We're
those
doing it.
500 may be some folks with some very good gifts and assets and talents, right? Just like
That's
yourself.
what
So
I'm
always,
searching for. I keep begging. That's all we
yeah,
can do.
look internally for people.
Yeah.
Well, as we're drawing close to wrapping up, one final short question to each of the four panelists. What is the one thing you're most proud of in your neighboring efforts?
I'll go
I
first.
think what I'm most proud of is us being able to serve the needs, really meet the emotional and the physical needs of people in the neighborhood, and let them know that they are not alone.
Michael, jump in there.
Yeah, I can start. I see the needle moving, especially on the trash pickup. There's more and more people joining my effort. We're actually going to do a neighborhood association drive, where if you give your dues, a donation is what we call it, to the neighborhood association, we'll give you a trash picker. So starting to get more people involved. I already have a couple people, their brains are spinning on how we can approach the city on fixing issues about litter. So I'm seeing the needle move, and that's really exciting to me.
I'd say for me, I think, well, we're coming up on our 5-year anniversary for MapleGood next month. So knowing, like, at the beginning, I mean, we had a lot of volunteers, but a lot of the same ones. I mean, still a good number, but I'm just thrilled to see so many more now, like involved, and people that, again, I think I said earlier that were needing that, people that needed help in the beginning and now are really wanting to be part of that. They have appreciated the benefits and want to serve. And so, and we have had some kids too. So I think that's, been really exciting to see them like want to go fill the mini pantries or, help with cooking. And so it's a wider range of ages and types of people that are coming together. So.
Yeah, great example. Tracy, wrap us up here. Bring us home. What are you most proud of?
I think me is I got a spotlight put on Blue Summit. I got the attention of the Jackson County government. I've got people, I got their attention. I think I finally got some attention from them, and they're taking notice, and they figured out that I'm not going away, and I won't shut up.
Yeah.
You can't shut up. You can't. You just got to keep going, and you got to keep doing what you're doing, and pray every day. Pray every day that God gives me the strength to continue the fight. And when my time's done and over with, my kids will pick it up. They're standing behind me and encouraging me all the way. My oldest grandson graduates this year, and he's like, "Grandma, why don't you just run for county legislator? Just run for a position and get in there, and you can help make things better that way too. And we'll campaign for you and everything." I'm like, I don't know. Don't know if I want to do that yet, but I think that's my biggest accomplishment, is just getting them involved, getting the county, to actually take notice that we are here and we are human beings, we are families, and we do pay taxes the same as everybody else. And they need to step up and take care of us.
Well, getting that attention and getting others to be involved can be a heavy lift sometimes. So that is a big accomplishment. Well, thanks to each of our panelists who have all had major accomplishments in their own right, in their own communities and neighborhoods, and part of why we're thrilled to be able to recognize them as part of as an engaged neighbor during Missouri Good Neighbor Week. And thanks for joining on this panel discussion and stuff. Reminder about the meeting in March with Pete Davis, the author of the book Dedicated. And I'll end the recording, but you're welcome to stay on, chat, and network, because I know there's some questions that people might want to have follow up on. We're glad for you to do that, but I'll go ahead and end the recording.